And too often we think if we're spending money on infrastructure, it's an investment, but it's not always an investment. To me, we have to look at every opportunity to invest in infrastructure and see what's the return on that investment. And it's not just a strict accounting dollars and cents, but we have true public investment, which the ideal is then private investment follows that. On tonight's agenda, we're talking about 8th Street, and that's kind of been what's promoted it and why I've supported it for many years is the idea that the public, we will invest in 8th Street and then private dollars will follow. But the private dollars need to see that the public really is going to invest. That's the dollar side, but then kind of the longer term dollar side is also the environment and social. So we can talk about social value or environmental value. So we can make investments in our stormwater system, and that's not paying a return necessarily, but we're doing better by the bay and our watershed. And we know that a lot of what makes Traverse City so popular is our bay and our watershed and protecting that. So it is truly an investment. It would take quite a bit of time to figure out, a dollar figure to assign to that. And same with the social aspect. So when we invest in sidewalks and we get people connected and interacting, it's a lot easier for me to talk to you if we pass on a sidewalk. We can wave to each other, my car to your car, but we're not so likely to have a conversation. And impromptu conversations, again, hard to put a value on that, but over time you develop relationships, there are business opportunities, there are other opportunities that come from that, just a tighter knit community in general. So backing up to investment, so infrastructure investment. So I'm always looking for, is it an investment or are we just spending dollars? Like what's the return? And we can't always say, well, it's a 3% return or whatever that return is, but let's at least have some discussion and understanding of what we're hoping to achieve by that investment. We have our corridors master plan. We certainly have TIF 97, Old Town TIF. So lots of documents we can point to as far as ideas or concepts, because none of those are absolute until they get approved, whether it's by the DDA or the Planning Commission, and move on to the City Commission for approval. So each project, there's opportunity for public input, discussion, and then approval to actually expend funds on it. Because things change. We might have something in a plan, and once it gets to be a few decades old, we certainly want to revisit that and see if it still makes sense. Backing up again to, I mentioned 8th Street, that's on the agenda tonight. That's a prime example of the community needing to have the discussion of what are we trying to achieve. We know we want 8th Street to be better, but let's be more specific. What's better? And it means different things to different people, and that's good, but that's why we need to have the conversation so we can understand where others are coming from. Certainly it's a cross-town route. So it needs to be able to move automobiles, truck traffic, buses, school buses, beta buses. It needs to be able to move those. I drive 8th Street every day, multiple times typically. And I appreciate it, even if it's slow, if it can be moving. And the slowness, slow is a relative term. The speed limit's 25. If we're going 26, 27, I'm comfortable with that. But part of the road diet that was implemented several years ago was to keep those speeds down. There was 35, 40, things like that. But in addition to moving vehicles through there, we want it to be a place for people. There's a neighborhood adjacent to it. We want those people to be able to go to businesses, and for businesses to want to open on 8th Street and redevelopment there. So there's great opportunities, but it's those discussions of what are we trying to achieve and how are the city dollars invested in 8th Street working us toward those goals. My priorities still are probably around connecting people to people. So whether that's, sidewalks is high on the list. I'd like to work toward completing the sidewalk network in the city. And then getting back to the investment aspect of it, where can we get the most for our investment? And that's how I prioritize typically.